Hi everybody, this is Gad Saad. 2 days ago, Imam Tawhidi reached out to me saying that he'd be in Montreal and that if we might be able to meet. And then I remembered that Mufassil Islam, who was a guest on my show a few weeks ago, had also reached out to me to say that he'd be in Montreal for a few days additionally. Very, very quickly, I had to try to set up a debate between the two gentlemen. Now, we had already discussed a few weeks ago the possibility of holding a debate between Imam Tawhidi, who, as you know, well, based on his title, is an Imam who is trying to reform Islam and who's gained quite a bit of world prominence over the past few years. And Mufassil Islam is a gentleman who used to be an Islamic preacher who then left Islam and is now someone who is a vociferous critic of religion in general and Islam in particular. And so we had an opportunity here, since both of them happened to be in Montreal at the same time, to hold a debate right away and well ahead of the timeline that we were supposed to follow, which would have been probably sometime next year. And so we decided to hold a debate today. Now, I was hoping that while, of course, they might discuss some of the points that they both agree and disagree on, that we wouldn't sink too deeply into all sorts of doctrinal weeds. This one quotes this surah, and then, this one says that, no, this is what was meant here, no, this is what was meant there. Of course, there is a time and place for such conversations. I thought that it would be much more fruitful if we tackled some of the differences and commonalities that the two gentlemen might have on a higher level of analysis, rather than, as I said, being stuck in the doctrinal weeds. But they assured me once we finished that many viewers, especially Muslim viewers, might find the doctrinal details to be interesting. I remain agnostic about that possibility. I hope that you will find it valuable. In some sense, you could have replaced me with a lamppost and the conversation could have gone on, because to the best of my ability, I try to redirect the conversation away from some of these very, very fine details regarding a specific passage in the Quran and so on and so forth. Not sure that I always succeeded, but I think we do walk away with one important takeaway, which I pointed to at the end of the clip, and that is that the importance of freedom of speech is perfectly manifested in that particular debate. Imam Tawhidi is a practicing Muslim who's someone who takes his faith very seriously, and yet he feels compelled to critique aspects of his faith that he'd like to see reformed. Mufassil Islam is someone who, at this point, is completely washed himself from, if you like, the shackles of his faith. He wouldn't be able to have this conversation in Bangladesh, certainly, and many other parts of the world. And of course, I sat as the not sure if I was a hapless moderator in the middle. I am the atheist Jew, and we had a wonderful conversation. Of course, at some points, it became intense between the two gentlemen, but we all walked away feeling really good. We went for coffee afterwards. There was nothing but warmth between all of the participants. And this is the way that you have conversations, even though they may disagree on many aspects of Islam. They're able to shake hands and feel good about one another. And so if you take nothing else away from this conversation other than the fact that we were able to have a very difficult conversation about issues that people feel very strongly about and walk away as friends, then that's an important lesson to take away. So without any further ado, here is the earlier debate held between Imam Tawhidi and Mufassil Islam. Ciao. Hi, everybody. This is Gad Saad, and boy, what a manwich we have. I am the Jewish bologna across the two breads, an Imam and an ex-Muslim. Here we have Imam Muhammad Tawhidi, and here we have Mufassil Islam, both of whom have been on the show. I should mention that the good Imam is now the first three-peat guest, whereas Mufassil has now entered the rare category of a twice repeat guest. Luckily, they were both in Montreal. We were supposed to have this conversation probably, in a few months, but they both were here. And so impromptu, the last second, we decided to have a conversation together. Now, I should say that something that is much scarier than dangerous Islamists is to go and tell your wife on her birthday that you are going to not spend all time with her because you're going to host these two gentlemen. So my wife, who is now off camera, please forgive me and go easy on my soul. All right, guys, welcome.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for having us.
Great. So I thought, my pleasure. What I thought we would do first is, and I was telling you this offline, when I read some of your stuff, I get the feeling that there's a lot more that is common to both of you. You're both quite frontal and vociferous critics of many elements of Islam, many elements of Islamic societies. So of course, we could talk about some of those commonalities, but what I'd like to perhaps spend time doing today is where is it that you depart from one another? You were an Islamic preacher, so you certainly know your Islam. You are an Imam, you certainly know your Islam. Why is it that it led you to move away from Islam, whereas in your case, you could be critical of Islam and yet see a lot of value in it that you could remain within the faith? Either of you can take it.
Well, if I may.
Please.
I'm a vehement critic of all religions.
Right.
I'm against any organized religion. I don't believe any scripture to be divinely revealed. And that's the first part of it. And the second part of it, I thought that Islam was a divinely revealed religion from Allah Almighty. But in fact, eventually, I had to reassess my understanding of Islam, which I preached over 35 years. And that took me over to 80 countries all over the world. And I had to wake up to the facts that real Islam was something different. And to my reassessment, I found out Islam was no less a baseless religion like all other religions. And the problem of the present world has a lot to do not only with Islamic politics, but also Islamic theology and jurisprudence and everything, the life of Muhammad himself. So that's, in fact, paved the way for my apostasy.
And in your case, how would you diverge from what he just said?
My brother Mufassil does not believe in any religion. I'm not sure if you believe in God.
I'm an agnostic man.
Okay. I'm a believer in God. And as a believer in God, it's very important for me to establish a connection with that God. And therefore, religion comes between myself and God. Islam is not necessarily the only religion that establishes a connection between human beings and God. One can be a Christian, can be a Jewish, can be a Muslim, Buddhist, whatever leads that person to establishing their belief and faith. And I'm a Muslim because, number one, I was born a Muslim. Secondly, I studied Islam, and I believe that a large number of its foundations and principles do lead me towards God. And similar to every other religion, there will be certain aspects of that religion that we could do good without. But it does not mean that I no longer believe in God. I mean, belief in God is part of my life. It's how my brain functions. I cannot stop believing in God. No matter how many lectures of Hitchens that I watch or Richard Dawkins, it's always going to be there within my existence as an individual that I believe in God. And when you believe in God, you need to seek a connection, a bond with that creator. And therefore, I'm a believer. I happen to be Muslim because I was born a Muslim initially, and I studied Islam. Why I remain a Muslim is a very serious question. If I'm critical of certain elements of the faith, I'm not critical of my God. I am critical of the establishment within my religion. There are certain things that have been added onto the religion or presented as though they are part of the religion when they are not when they're not part of the religion. Many people, and sorry if I'm taking a bit longer here, but many people see me as someone who's on the fringe, someone who's very progressive, someone who's very modern, a modern Imam. And that's not true. I'm actually a very conservative Muslim. So with everything that you see online, that's actually me being a very good Muslim. And I pray 5 times a day. I fast. I'm not fasting today because I'm traveling. And you don't fast when you travel. I observe my rituals. I'm very, very strict in my beliefs. And I'm a practicing person. And maybe that's why the extremists are threatened by me, because I'm not an Imam that goes around having a beer here and there. I'm actually someone who is practicing within the religion. Why I'm still a Muslim is because there are main figures within the religion, such as, for example, Imam Hussein, who were reformists, who did present a new reformed version of Islam after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. And they were killed and massacred and butchered. And no one with humanity in their hearts could disagree about the greatness of a man by the name of Hussein and what he stood for. And I'm a believer in that type of Islam. And obviously we can discuss further about the types of Islam that are there.
So do you think that there is anything other than the accident of you being born into a Muslim family that would have allowed you to choose Islam as your pathway to God, were it not that you were simply, in other words, if you were born in Tel Aviv, you would have been a Jew. If you were born in Rome, you would have been a Catholic. So if it really amounts to it being nothing but an accident of where you're born, then what is unique about Islam that allows you to have a relationship with God? And then, of course, I can ask you the same thing.
I wouldn't call it accident, because when you've established belief in God, then clearly there's a purpose for you to be in a certain place, in a certain condition, in a certain family. I wouldn't say accident, because looking at my family, I mean, I come from a lineage that established Islam as a religion. So my ancestors fought alongside the Prophet Muhammad in his battles. We were one of the first people to establish the religion. I am a descendant of certain prophets, Prophet Hud, Prophet Noah. I'm a 3rd generation Imam. And being a Muslim and now bringing this notion of reform into the religion, I wouldn't look back and say, I came here as an accident. In an accident, I think what really happened was there is a purpose for my existence, and seeing the amount of positive change we are doing, although very slow, I still believe that I have a purpose in this life. So yes, maybe I would have been Jewish if I was born in Tel Aviv, or maybe I would have been Christian if I was born in Rome. But the reality is, I'm not.
In your case, you don't think that there is anything unique about any religion, let alone Islam, to make you a more moral person. If anything, you probably think the opposite.
I will pick on a few issues my brother has mentioned here. First of all, I do not believe anybody is born a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew. Nobody is born that way. And secondly, it's great my brother has come from a great
lineage,
Imam family and lineage. I come from a Sufi family as well. My forefathers preached Islam in South Asia for 250 years. And I'm only the only son of my father. And I was supposed to preach Islam, which I did for many decades. But my question will be, what is the definition of God? What is your definition of God? Just be saying that I believe in God shouldn't be enough, because the understanding of God is very much different in Christianity from what we understand in Islam. And to know what God is and how to fulfill the purpose of my life, because according to Quran, the only purpose that Allah created mankind and the jinn were to worship Him. So to know God from Allah from His book and from the example set by the Prophet Muhammad, my question would be then how do you worship that God unless you really question Him, unless you really want to find out what He really wants me to do? So if you engage my analytical mind and I try to understand God, I have to question Him. And if I question Him, which Quran in fact forbids, then I am not engaging my freedom of thought and freedom of conscience. And if I engage my freedom of thought and my freedom of conscience and question the instructions which were ordained in the Quran and exemplified in hadiths and the seerahs, I would say, sorry, that's not the God for me. So I engaged those analytical minds and I questioned Allah. I questioned Allah through the book that He supposedly revealed, and I found out those instructions are not in fact compatible to the God of morality that I expect to worship. So my question again would be whether there is a God, then define God to me. What is your definition of God? And if your definition of God is the God of Quran, I'll say definitely not. If you're God of the Bible, well, to some extent, no. But there are many things which manifested in Jesus Christ, and I would love them. And many things Jesus said, but many things I do not agree with Jesus even. So just to say that I'm an agnostic man doesn't necessarily necessitates me to believe in God, to have the notion that there is probably a God. So I don't agree there.
Got it. What would be the parts, and I follow you very intensely on your social media, and of course you're critical of many elements, doctrines of Islam. What are the ones that, if you like, jar you the most, that you would like to see somehow reformed or reinterpreted or altered in a way that is compatible with your view of your religion?
Okay. You've asked me about the alteration that I'd like to see. The brother has inquired about my belief in God and the definition of God. So can I answer him first?
Please. Anything you want.
I'll hand back to you.
Sure.
The God I believe in is the same God that is referred to as Father in Christianity, and the one creator that many religions believe in. Although many might present this God to be different, only because the books are presenting that God in a very different way. The one argument the church has against Islam is that your Quran didn't bring anything new. And many people might have heard this in the fields of debates, that the Quran didn't bring anything new. What's in there, the majority of it is in the Torah, it's in the Bible. What makes it a significant religion? This, in fact, proves that it would be safe to say that all religions are like trains heading towards one God. Whether we differ about Allah being the same as the Father in Christianity or not, we all know that if this world was created, it was created by one God, or gods, like many people might believe. But in reality is, Muslims are directed to believe in that one creator. Whether or not we differ in the characteristics, in the specifications of that creator, does this creator have a physical form? Does he have needs? Does he make mistakes? What language does he speak to the people with? Is he eternal? Is he not eternal? Does he come down on earth? Does he not come down on earth? We may disagree on the characteristics and the descriptions and also the attitude of this God. But when we're speaking about God, this terminology in theology refers to the one creator that created all. And this is obviously with respect to other religions that believe in many gods. But I'm speaking from an Abrahamic perspective. So this is my definition of God, the one creator. Another argument would be, probably from Mufassil side, is that is Allah the same as the Father in Christianity, and so on. But I'm not speaking about that. I'm speaking about the one creator that I believe in as a Muslim, and that all Muslims are supposed to believe in this God. We can disagree about the lower cases that I just referred to. That's my definition of God, the one creator.
Which I do disagree with.
Okay. Secondly...
You'll answer in a second.
Yes.
Okay.
Secondly is the matter of...
Some things that you'd want changed in the religion.
No, he said questioning this God. Brother Mufassil said that in the Quran it states that you cannot question God. It's forbidden to question God. That's not true.
That's not true.
In fact, you can question God. And God
Surah
has
21 verse 23. It says you cannot question Allah.
Quote it for me.
Well, I'm not a Hafiz, but I'm telling you, Surah 21 verse 23, you can check it right now. It says you cannot question Allah. Allah will be the only one to question.
Right. That verse refers to the Day of Judgment. When...
Well, not really. Because Prophet Muhammad, in fact, was asked about this, and he said that people of the past, they questioned and they lost their iman.
Right.
So your iman, in fact, dwindles if you question.
I mean, in a sense, what this debate deals with, what you just talked about now,
In
is
fact, I want to pick up on the issue my brother was
Okay.
referring to.
If I may just
If we
complete
yeah,
what
please.
I meant.
Sure.
Please.
Now that you explained the questioning
Yes.
part, brother, in Arabic, and allow me to
Please.
speak with some authority here.
Please.
In Arabic, the term questioning doesn't have many definitions, but it changes when placed in certain contexts. So if God sent a message and he's referring to that message being questioned, that basically means that that message was rejected. Questioning here means doubt. So for example, I would come to the Prophet Muhammad and say, "Who said you're a prophet? Get out of here." That in itself is called questioning.
Oh, well, that's not what we find from the hadiths.
Leave the hadiths alone.
You want to leave the hadith?
he's not into the
Okay,
hadith.
okay.
As
If
a,
you-
as
Me
he-
and you shake hands on the hadith matter.
But you do pray 5 times.
I do, not because the
But,
hadith tell me.
how would you pray believing on Quran alone that you can, the way you are prostrating, the way you are wearing the beard?
Correct.
How can you do that?
The beard has nothing to do with the Quran.
Oh, well,
And my
that's what I
prayer-
agree. So it has nothing to do with the Quran. So how do you wear that, and why do you wear that?
The family of the prophets.
That's what I'm saying. So where do you know the family of the Prophet? You have to go for the Seerah and the Hadiths.
No, you don't.
So where do you find it from?
The teachings of... Brother, allow me
Yeah, please.
to elaborate.
Please.
The religion itself is made from theology,
Yes.
doctrine, history, doings,
Yeah.
and doings divide into 3 categories.
Yes. Yeah.
So what the Prophet does is
Was-
considered authority. What he refrains from doing is considered a teaching that you refrain
You
from
mean
doing
qawli,
this.
fi'li, takriri?
Exactly.
Yes.
And then what he states. The compilations that we have today are made up of 90%, safe to say 90%, these sayings of Prophet Muhammad. The sayings of Prophet Muhammad. My problem with the hadith is that who said that the Prophet said these? A man by the name of Bukhari, or even come to the Shia scholars who didn't see the Prophet. Bukhari was absolutely blind. He never spoke Arabic. He was a Persian man. Never saw the Prophet. Didn't live with the Prophet. Came 200 years after the Prophet. All of a sudden, he's connected with an Islamic dynasty. And the Islamic dynasty promoted his version of Islam. He introduced the concept of jihad, made a massive army for the dynasty, and all of a sudden his books became sacred. To me, what's in his book means nothing. Even if it's the most sacred book after the Quran, it means nothing to me.
But from a grand
well,
doctrinal
still-
perspective, Al-Azhar University would not
Who
agree
is
with your
Al-Azhar?
position.
Al-Azhar is a nobody. They're nobody.
I think, brother, we are drifting away from.
Yeah,
the-
we're getting into details of doctrine.
We're
Let's pick
actually-
it. Let's pick it up.
Yes.
But I'm
Let's-
just still intrigued to know what
The
will be
questioning-
basis, yes.
the questioning
no,
of
questioning the basis of you
Right.
have wearing a beard.
You're speaking to a Shia Muslim.
Yes,
Shia
I
Muslims
understand. I understand
have-
your Shia
yeah.
concept. But my question will be still, check out the Siras. You want to check out the Siras?
Right.
Examples and lives of Muhammad.
Right.
You want to check out the Quran. Sorry, not the
No,
Quran,
only the Quran
Hadiths.
matters.
Hadiths, only the Quran matters. So if you want to base on the Quran, my question will be, what will be the basis of you, the way you pray 5 times? Sometimes they do pray 4 times.
Right.
So
how
to-
do you?
I
how
want
do
to
you
summarize
exemplify
what this
it?
debate
Yes.
is. You think that you only need to rely on the Quran
yes.
and leave the other stuff, whereas typically most Muslims would say there's the
Well,
Sirah, the
I have
biography of
issues with
Muhammad,
that as well.
the Hadiths,
Yes.
Right.
which are the sayings.
He's asking me,
Right.
why do you pray and have a beard? These are not teachings that one takes from the Quran. These are traditions.
Yes. Where do you get them from?
You get them from passing on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
We Shia, we believe that the Imams are infallible. They're the lineage of the Prophet. If they see us doing something and they don't teach us and correct us, that means we're doing it right. And therefore it continues because they're also
Should
doing it.
should that be basis of learning and progressing in Islam? That you follow your imams, the Ayatollah.
No. We're not talking Ayatollah.
You're talking about the imams that are handed down understanding.
Yeah, the successors of God.
Right. Would you
Of
also
the
take the
Prophet of God.
blames? Would you also take the blames that were committed, even your own city? You come from Qum, brother, am I right?
Right.
Even your own city, carried out by Safavids,
Yes.
against the Jewish people.
The Safawis are not Shia Muslim Imams.
Brother, many will disagree, but I'm saying there are many.
Who?
But there are many scholars.
No.
Okay, I'm coming to that.
Safawis
I
are
will give you-
dynasties.
okay,
and
I will- I will
they're not
give
from
you-
Mecca.
I will give you
We're
that
getting
Safawis
caught in
are
the
not
weeds.
Shias.
We're getting caught in the weeds.
I'll give it to you, even if you say they were not Shias. But it's still,
The Safawis are Shia.
yeah, yes, that's what I'm saying. You're one saying, one
They're not
saying,
Shia Imams.
I didn't say they're Shia. I said they're Shias, the Safavids.
Right.
What the Safavids carried out was horrendous
Right.
up to the time, even now,
Yes.
your present-day Iran,
Yes.
which has criminal procedure
Yes.
codes,
Yes.
where they're persecuting people who are even disagreeing. We know the singer,
Yes.
Musa, who in fact was persecuted
Yes.
for singing a song.
Yeah.
So all these are coming from the clerics. We cannot just simply say, you wash your hands about it.
I think you don't understand. I'm sorry, maybe I didn't make myself clear.
Okay.
The term Imam, that's...
The Shias believe.
No. Allow me to explain. Prophet Muhammad, his successor, and their successors are called Imams.
You mean
They
the
are-
12?
Yes, the 12 infallible
I
Imams.
understand that.
We are community Imams.
Yes.
We're not Imams that take
No,
orders
I didn't
from
say
God.
that. I'm telling you
Yeah.
the 12.
When I
Yes.
say I learn my traditions and my worship from Imams,
Were they conducive so far?
they are the
Have
12
they been
Imams.
conducive, brother?
Allow
I
me.
feel like I'm Dave Rubin here, where when he is between two folks who are fighting, and he keeps going, guys,
No,
guys,
no. I think
guys.
it's very important for the viewer to
Because
understand.
but we're stuck in weeds. I want big picture stuff.
Yes.
Okay,
There's a
big picture,
lot
go
of
back
there's
to Allah,
there's
go back to
there's a
God,
lot
concept
of
of
there's a
God.
lot of stuff that is clearly for, you don't have to be an imam or a professor at Al Azhar University, where you read the stuff in any of the holy sources of the Quran.
Professor Gadsat, I have to emphasize on the issue that I want to talk about the understanding of God that we have in Abrahamic religion. I would rather say it is a treachery in many ways to, I'm sorry to use the word, in many ways to say the Christian God, understanding of God, and the Islamic understanding of God are the same because they claim to be Abrahamic. They are not, definitely not. Because there are many issues I can say. It's not only that you're on as creator. No, it's not creator.
But we're
it's
not going to resolve the question of how to define God in this conversation. So what I'd like to know is how do you read the rather harsh passages in these holy books and integrate them within your religion? Is it that you
Perfect.
think that they are misinterpreted? Is it that they're mistranslated? Is it that they're contextual? Give me the gymnastics, forgive the term, that you have to
okay.
go through, which, by the way, I don't think is gymnastics, because when I read some of your stuff, you seem to be just as harsh of a critic on some of the stuff as I would be or he would be. So how do you reconcile some of the ugly stuff?
Okay. Firstly, I question everything in the Quran. Brother Mufassil says that you can't question. And like I said, the term questioning differs in context. That's the Arabic language. You're an Arab yourself, so you would know the context of the word yas'al, yatasa'al, to question, to put doubt.
Your mother tongue is Arabic?
Yes, yes. And therefore, if you look at Surah Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, which is the biggest chapter of the Quran, God says, Inni ja'alun fil ardi khalifa, I am placing an ambassador on earth. The angels, who in theology don't have free will. Angels don't have free will. Angels only obey God. And that's why we say she's an angel. He's an angel, because everything is so good. They don't have free will. Angels do not have free will. What angels have is that they are obedient. But even when angels do not have free will, what they do is they turn around and they question God. And in the Quran, قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. They said, God, are you really going to create a human being, Adam, whose children and lineage are going to spread corruption and shed blood on this earth? And God turned around and said, no, I know what you do not know. Don't interfere in what I wish to do. Now, this clearly shows you that one can have a dialogue with God. One can question God. The only time where in the Quran, well, not the only time, but the many times that God says in the Holy Quran that you shouldn't question or that you can't question is that don't come to me on the day of judgment thinking I am not the witness and I'm not the judge. You cannot lie to me. I've already seen everything. That's the main concept when God says you cannot question me, unless you can quote a different
Well, I
verse.
will definitely disagree there. First of all, no, I don't think that's enough to say. God never said to the angels, if my memory is serving me right, to do not interfere. He didn't use the term. Rather,
I
yes,
never said that God said do not interfere.
I think, do not interfere.
Higher level, guys, higher level.
But
Don't-
anyway,
let's not-
let's move on. But when you are not offering the freedom of thought, freedom of choosing, as you said, God has given us free will, but at the same time, God is insulting people of other scriptures. God is insulting.
You would
the
certainly agree
Kafirs.
with that, right? That the manner by which Islamic sources view the other is not terribly complimentary. Would you agree with that in general?
As in how Islam...
How Islam views the kafir, how Islam...
You mean Islam as a religion or the Muslims?
Islam as a religion.
Islam, as in the doctrines of Islam.
No.
What do they think of the Jews? And
You can marry them and live with them and there's no problem. But
Hold on.
there will be disagreements. Disagreements do not
Quran-
mean hate. They're two different things. Religions disagree with each other.
But the Quran also says, brother, that marry a believer who is better to marry a slave woman who is a believer. Rather than,
Verse.
Surah Nisa, I don't remember exact verse. I'm not Zakir Naik. Surah Nisa.
Zakir Naik talk.
So Surah
Zakir Naik talks
we can shake
gibberish.
hand
They
there.
may not get the reference.
We can shake that.
No,
You want to explain who that is? Just
Zakir
quickly.
Naik is some...
If you want, I can spend some time and give it to you right now.
maybe when I'm responding,
All right.
you can do
okay.
that.
And
but-
again, in Surah Bayina, if you know, that it says that the believers are the best of creations, and
Of course. Every religion believes that its believers are the best creations.
well, I don't believe that anything in the Bible that says, when it comes to Jesus, saying that you are better than the non-believers.
Matthew 10,
What does it say?
31 to 40.
Yeah, tell me.
Allow me.
Okay.
Oh, no.
No, please
Forget
go
the
on.
doctrines.
I want to see.
That's
Matthew
not what I
10.
want.
Yes.
Guys.
Verse 31 clearly says that Jesus says, I have come with a sword. I haven't come to spread peace. Now, the word sword here...
You don't know the context of it.
Exactly, let me finish.
Okay, go
the
on.
word sword here means to divide between the good and the bad. It does not mean violence. And that I have come to spread peace, which is beautiful. And then Jesus says, whoever does not believe in me,
Bring him to me.
no, is not worthy of me. And I can show
That
you
is
the
that
verse.
doesn't mean that he's saying they are better. Rather, Jesus said, one who
Not
lives by the
worthy.
sword. No, not worthy doesn't mean they are worse. Because Jesus rather said, one who lives by the sword will die by the sword. And also, Jesus says, love thy enemy. So if my enemy even is a non-believer, I will equally love him. But on the other hand, Muslims believe that you will love or you will hate for the sake of Allah. So if you love and for the
To
sake
make it
of
easy
Allah,
for you, I don't mean to interrupt you. Are all the verses in the Quran dark, or do we have some beautiful verses as well?
in the Quran,
Yes. Because I can pull them out. We do have beautiful verses.
So let's.
If
But
you
what
give me-
I was hoping for you to answer, because I've seen you criticize.
I'm going to get back to your
What
your
are the
question.
dark parts that you're able to reconcile
Right.
with your faith?
or even a beautiful verse.
So because I think if we get stuck in the surah this and surah that, it's very interesting maybe for us here, but the people who are watching don't give a damn about any
They
of this
don't-
stuff,
they
right?
won't get
right?
what's happening.
So it's completely
Let's move
useless,
on.
right?
Let's move
So
on.
what's important is to kind of have a big picture thing. So you're obviously somebody who is a practicing Muslim, who's an Imam, yet you are a very forceful critic of many aspects of whether it be Islamic doctrines, Islamic societies. So tell me how you navigate through that.
I don't navigate. It's very clear. The violent verses in the Quran are part of the development of the religion. And it does not mean that they are absolute in their context. Nobody on earth can ever prove that a verse that says kill the non-believers, which referred to a specific army at that time because of the language, does not mean that you kill every non-believer that you come across. These are part of the development of every religion. And the main reason why religions experience a reformation is for that very reason, that you turn around and you say, these violent verses no longer apply.
But I mean, surely the Jains are less violent than the Muslims, right? In other words, there's been 1,400 years of history, never mind what's in the doctrines, that suggest
that a lot of very knowledgeable Muslims have done horrible things to a lot of non-Muslims, and surely all of them were not misunderstanding and miscontextualizing the religion.
No, they were religious people.
Right.
In fact, they were practicing religious people. But I am 100% sure that without even asking Brother Mufassil, he will tell me that a large part of their faith depended on the hadiths, which I want scrapped out anyway.
So if we get, from your perspective,
so
if we
how
get
are you going
rid
to
of,
contextualize the verses? For example, you said the development of religion.
Right.
Or you said every religion. In fact, it's not true. Not every religion, in fact, progressed through this violence.
All Abrahamic religions
they
had
did not.
violent history.
Yes, they did, but that's not the way, in fact, many religions progress. It's not true at all. If you want to refer to Hinduism is...
It's not a divine religion, according to the Abrahamic structure of things.
I'm just quoting you. You said every religion. If you say Abrahamic
that's about
religion...
1 billion people who are
I
upset
apologize.
now.
I apologize. When we are speaking about religions, you began by saying divine religions.
Abraham religion?
We mean Abrahamic religions.
Okay, even
yes.
So what
if you say
happens to
Abraham
all
religion,
those other poor saps
They
who are
all
not
go to
fine?
heaven.
Oh, after heaven.
All go to heaven.
Is that what it says in the Quran?
All, look.
The people
the
who are
Quran-
not the non-people of the
Yes.
book
to
Yes.
are
contextualize.
going to heaven?
All.
The context.
Boy, I must have read a different
One
Quran.
second.
Okay.
Hell in the Quran is described as a very tiny place. Heaven is described as a very
But
massive
still,
place.
Jahannam will say, "Give me more." I'm not fair.
No. Jahannam, in reality, hellfire, in reality, isn't a place that God places His creations in. Who said this? The Imams say God is going to burn people alive. The Imams say so. Yes, Osama bin Laden, Saddam, and Hitler have to go to hell. They walk there by themselves. A mother cannot boil her children alive. Why would God, who loves us, boil us? It's not going to work like that.
Are you in a position to say who is going to go to heaven or who is going to go to hell?
Everyone.
According to Islamic doctrine.
Everyone.
Are you fit to say that?
It's like, look, it's a religion in itself, whether it be Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. If it disagrees with my mind, the problem is with the book, not with my brain. These are the foundations of a human being living an honorable life.
To understand the context of the Quran, as you said, it progressed, use the
I
term,
didn't say
developed. If you want to say the developed, then you have to understand, I think you do, which is the timeline order of revelation of the Quran. If you want to rely on that, then you will see there is treachery as well.
One cannot develop without it being complete. So clearly development happened after the compilation and completeness of the Quran.
So the development, well, not really as well, because Abu Bakr, who in fact initiated the first compilation, which you do not probably respect, Abu Bakr, but Abu Bakr in fact was the one who, sent Muslims to wars against the apostates. Okay. So that is part of the
Ridda wars.
The Ridda wars, yes, that's part of the progression and development as well.
No, it's not. It's part of the development of his caliphate, not the religion.
Well, the religion wouldn't have survived if...
No, it would survive.
So can I summarize I think I get your general position. All the nasty things that are in the hadith, who cares about them?
What about the nasty things in the Quran?
Hold on. All the stuff that we can point to top Islamic figures throughout history are just men who are fallible, therefore they do wrong things. But then if we turn to the Quran, which is your primary source, if I go through that with a fine-tooth comb, I won't find unbelievably nasty stuff that does not belong in the modern liberal world.
You will.
How do I deal with those?
I think there's one thing that needs to be clarified. The Quran isn't a manual for daily life. I think this really needs to be clarified. Nowhere does it say that this Quran is a manual for daily life. So the wars,
but Allah
the battles,
didn't leave out anything in the Quran. That's what it says.
Let me finish. There is no such thing that says that the Quran needs to be applied on a daily basis in the lives of every Muslim. There's history, there's stories, there's miracles, there's anger, there's laughter, there's jokes, there's swear words, there's news, there's the Quran. You cannot put a title on what the Quran is. It's a compilation of many things. It's theology, it's jurisprudence, it's in and out.
But Allah says in the Quran, He didn't leave out anything in there.
Yes, He didn't.
So
exactly.
if He did, He has instructions, in fact, directly or indirectly, or through inspirations. Let me finish, brother.
God's saying that the Quran encompasses everything.
No, let me finish what I'm saying.
Does not mean
do you not consider Quran to be ultimate miracle? And if it is the ultimate miracle, if you do, if you do believe Quran is ultimate miracle, and I think overwhelming majority of Muslims believe Quran to be ultimate miracle, one of the attributes of the Quran is you get inspirations or you get directions or for everything in the Quran. And if that's the case, that Allah didn't leave out anything from the Quran, then Islam is a religion which is totalitarian. And if you
Oh, brother, you are flipping from one thing to another.
No, I'm not. I'm not flipping. That's why a Muslim, if I can complete, if a Muslim is never in doubt, allegedly, about everyday day-to-day affairs. You said you didn't fast today because you were traveling.
Yes.
So if you're traveling and you didn't fast today, where did you get the instructions from?
Right.
When the Quran says you should fast, but there are exemptions from there where you should not fast. So everything that your life is being led
It's
by
actually in the Quran that
yes, exactly. So I'm saying there are exemptions there. So whenever you're doing by this, your Quran is in fact dictating everything that you do. Who do you marry?
It's not dictating.
It's not.
It's not.
When you're saying you can marry the Jews, you just said a few minutes ago.
1 second ago. Allow me to explain.
Could a Muslim woman marry a Jewish guy?
Of course. Of course.
I thought it was the other direction.
You can.
The Muslim man can take any woman who's not Muslim, but not the other way around.
See, I don't want to go deep because you're opening doors for me that I will need to go deep into to explain. And when I do,
I won't be satisfied until you go deep.
Exactly. But you keep opening doors that I need to answer.
The only reason I say that is because you lose the viewers.
So
that's all.
You have to be fair.
Let's cut down to what you want to hear.
Well, see, that's not fair. He spoke about everything and I can't answer.
Guys, Dave Rubin. Guys.
I think my brother is speaking more than I am speaking, to be honest.
Can I pray in Hebrew just to save myself? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivav lehadlik.
If I answer you now, they will not understand a word. You will understand a word. They will not understand a word because what you just said about God dictating and the Quran being a book, a miracle. So what? So what if the Quran is a miracle? Let's say it wasn't a miracle. So what? It's a book that encompasses everything. You cannot prove to me as a Muslim that my Quran says that I have to follow every verse in everyday perspective.
You have to accept.
Yes, I accept it as a book of history.
Yeah, no. When you say accept, you also have the duty to implement the words of Allah.
No, I don't. Where does it say?
You don't have to implement.
Where does it say?
That you have to implement the words of Allah.
Where does it say?
Well, it says in the Quran that I'm coming to that. It says that when the scripture has been revealed, Surah 5, verse 30 to 33, you read that then you reject it. So when the Quran, the scripture has been revealed, what do you mean? How do you reject?
Surah 5,
verse 30 to 33.
Getting caught in the weeds.
You're not letting him speak. You're not letting me speak. Allow us to discuss.
Yes.
This is Islam. We're not talking about Olympics. It's going to be.
But
very
see, what
hard.
I find more interesting is the fact
I don't mind talking about Olympics.
Because in your case, you're an Islamic expert, and then after a while, you decided to leave it. You're an Islamic expert, yet you remain in Islam. Yet you criticize.
I want it to change.
Hang on, but you criticize Islam in a way that is as forceful as the way that he's doing it. So what I find interesting from a psychological perspective is to go back and ask the question yet again: how do you navigate through those cognitive inconsistencies?
Yeah, Surah 5, verse 30 to 33.
Boom, here we go.
It says nothing
In
about
Arabic.
what you
Well,
said.
I'm coming to that.
Here we go.
No, there's English translation.
I don't have glasses, but I'll read it.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. But that doesn't make for good viewing to be reading this.
Hold on. Okay, because I know you quoted this once. Because of that, we decreed upon the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul and for corruption, this has issue with your country's law, in the land, it is as if he has slain the mankind entirely. And whoever serves one, it is for as if he had saved mankind. And our messages had certainly come to them with clear proofs. So the messages, how do you get the messages? The messages are through the scriptures and the verses of the scriptures. So once they have come and still you do not follow, you spread corruption in the lands. So if you say that Quran is not saying accept it and entirely, how do you understand the development of the religion? So if you, sorry brother, can I finish?
I didn't say anything.
Okay, so if you want to follow the development of the religions, you also have to understand the scriptures and accept it as they are. So if Surah, for example, Surah 9,
I'm just the eye candy
All
here.
right, I have to explain this, what I'm trying to say.
Go for
Surah
it.
9, which is Surah Tawbah, according to timeline revelation order, it should be 112, not 9. And to understand the development of the Quran, if you mention this, then I have to mention Surah 8, verse 55. I have to mention Surah 98, verse 6 to 8. So to understand all that, I have to understand the entire Quran and accept them according to the mansukh and other systems, which one is abrogated, which one is not, which one is revealed, which one is not, and which one I should accept and which one I should say, oh, well, this is not applicable anymore. So to say that Quran doesn't say that you should follow word for word, I don't agree with you there.
So bottom line, you're saying that if I'm going to...
Even if the surahs verses are abrogated, even they
I have to follow it.
Allow me to respond.
Go. Here we go.
The verse you just quoted and read and gave me this entire explanation has nothing to do with the verse, the philosophy behind its revelation, the children of Israel.
You mean the Jewish people?
Yes.
I know that context.
It has nothing to do with this. Not one word what you said has anything to do with the verse you referred to. Not one word.
It has.
No,
it has.
not one word.
No, I'm sorry. I don't agree with you.
Show me which one.
I just mentioned it to you. When? Here. I read it to you.
Because he can't keep
Our
getting away with
messages
everything
had-
without me responding.
because-
Hang on. No. And our messages had...
The children of Israel.
Yes. No. Israel. Yes.
Has
So-
nothing to do with Islam.
It has to do with Islam.
This
the
is-
revelation was in
Reformation
the
is gonna work
contextual,
really well,
no
guys.
context of the Jewish people who in fact rejected them. So
It has nothing
It has.
to do
It
with
has.
the
It
children
has.
of Israel. We
No,
are
no, no.
talking
Can I draw you back?
Yeah.
Let's try one more time.
Allow me to say one word. Just one thing.
and
please.
also, sorry, brother.
Uh,
198 verse 6 to 8 and 855. You have to read
I'm
the
doomed.
context of these verses.
May God have mercy on my
Brother,
soul.
allow me to say
May
one
the
thing.
non-existing God have mercy on my soul.
Allow me to explain.
Yeah.
Or to just add something. Look, I'm really sorry I'm going to have to say this. Brother Mufassil, I don't want to say that you have no idea what you are speaking about. I'm not saying that. Or at least
But I am.
in this context.
But I'm saying the same thing.
Allow me, or you can challenge me on this.
Yes, I will.
I don't know if the viewers will be interested. I'm here until however long you want me to
Yeah,
be.
okay.
For you to get a clarification for myself. And the viewers have the right to hear
Yes.
that. What you said so far has nothing to do with the development of Islam that we initially began speaking about, has nothing to do with questioning God, has nothing to do with God insisting that Islam needs to be followed, has nothing to do with how Muslims hate other people, has nothing to do with what I criticize in Islam. The verses you are referring to are nothing but historical events that occurred, and God is saying in the beginning of this very chapter, remember when the children of Israel and we showed them our signs. We're not even talking Islam, we're talking Judaism in this verse.
Brother, sorry. First of all, it has everything to do with the development of Islam. It has everything to do with the torture that...
Based on what
Brother,
laws?
I didn't interrupt you when you said. So, with the development of Islam, with the development of theocracy, with the development of Islamic jurisprudence, it has everything to do with which has been exemplified throughout history, not only by Sunnis, but also by Shias, through torture and through a killing of non-believers, the Jewish people, the apostates, history after history, up to last year, when many of my fellow apostates got killed, and we get thousands of death threats a day. And if you say this has nothing to do with the real Islam, it's wrong.
I didn't say that.
With the progress of Islam, development of Islam.
I didn't say that.
I'm saying this Quran, with the development of verses, has everything to do with it. For example, the verses I was referring to, Surah 98, verse 6 to 8, and also the verse Surah 8, verse 55, all those are taken into context, are taken together. And whereas the non-Muslims are the worst creatures, and then when we leave Islam, we are considered to be impure. Surah 9, verse 27, 28, 29. So if you are unclean, then in history, even in your own country, Jewish people had to wear certain things to show they are Jewish people. And in history, your country, Jewish people were considered unclean. And in my understanding, whoever I am, whenever I leave Islam, from the context that you are saying there's nothing to do with understanding or development of Islam. I would say it has everything to do with Islam, because eventually, through timeline revelation order and through putting all the surahs together, verses together. You can engage into mental gymnastics as much as you want. But I will say, from the examples on history, 99% of the examples show that non-Muslims were persecuted, apostates are being killed, not even were.
Do you
are
agree
being
that-
killed.
Of course I agree.
Are
So-
being
and
killed.
is-
So these are, sorry,
and are those-
brothers, sorry.
sorry.
So if you say this has nothing to do.
I didn't say nothing to
No,
do with this.
if I
In
said,
fact, I am one of the main
brother,
opposers
I-
of that phrase.
sir,
So then how?
I use the word if you remember. If you believe that's the way, then I would say, yes, this is coming from the Quran. And if you say there's nothing coming from the Quran, suddenly you got probably some sort of revelation. I don't know.
Can I summarize what's going on? So my feeling is, you both have very compelling reasons to criticize aspects of Islam.
Yes.
In his case, he can throw out all of it and say, this is all nonsense. In your case, you're able to cut and slice in such a way that you believe that there are elements that could be salvageable and other elements where you will
Do
agree
you
with him.
condemn the ex-Muslims killed
Of course.
around the world?
Of course.
Do you believe that I have the right to criticize Muhammad in the strongest of terms?
Of course.
Right.
But Islam doesn't allow that.
Yes, it does.
it does.
It does.
It does.
It does. Practically and theologically.
Right.
Really?
Practically and theologically.
Practically and theologically.
Right. How does it allow
Well-
when your Quran has verses which cannot be understood, brother, without going for hadith, seerah, and
Do you want
context?
some water?
Well, cool it down.
Relax.
Relax. Yes. Yes.
Firstly-
No, trust me, this
So
is-
your
it's just
position is from a doctrinal perspective,
Yes.
you're allowed
it cannot be.
Allow me to
criticize
speak.
Muslims.
Allow me
Yeah,
to
go on,
speak.
Please.
Firstly, I think, and also for the viewers, I think we should have defined the meaning of Islam from your perspective and from my perspective. You and the viewers and Brother God have shaped the discussion today. When referring to Islam, you're referring to everything Islamic, this whole package of Islam. And you're tackling that. You're speaking to a Muslim reformer. When you say Islam to me, there are many chapters of Islam that I tackle in order to reform.
Why do you have to reform?
Allow me to finish.
Yes, please go.
There's a theological perspective,
Right.
a political perspective, economic perspective, a social perspective. There are concepts within Islam, such as the one Muslim nation, that need to be addressed. There is a historical perspective, the traditional perspective. Every part of Islam, or Islam, is formed from these parts. One cannot come and say that Islam cannot be reformed without telling me which part of Islam cannot be reformed.
Quran cannot be reformed
Allow me to finish.
Can the Quran be reformed?
Of course it can.
throughout chapters, verses.
No.
No.
Brother. Why do we have... Look, we're going to open another chapter.
Yes.
I'm going to answer you quickly for the viewers' sake, and then I'm
Yeah,
going to go
go on.
back. Why do we have 6,000 interpretations of the Quran?
Because people view it differently, basing on several sources of other sources of Islam.
Do you agree that people view things differently based on time? That's why we have different interpretations based on time?
And it's in an effort to reform it.
Yes. So if they have an interpretation, we can have an interpretation. So yes, it can be. You were tackling the matter of apostates. You were tackling the matter of Abu Bakr. These are nobodies. Leave them. So what? Let's focus on why I want to reform based on what Brother God is saying. What I say is that every problem in the Quran that the world has, what do you have in? What's the problem? The killing, the beating of the wife. These matters are not absolute. They're not eternal verses. Nobody said they were eternal. The only ones that
Is this
said
the
they
last
were eternal,
revealed book?
no,
Isn't it that,
allow me to
that
finish.
it's
It's not the last
inerrant
revealed
and
book.
it cannot be changed? حرف ما فيك تغير.
No, you
Is
can't.
it
Allow
not
me
the
to
last
finish.
revealed book
Allow me to
to the
finish.
last prophet?
Allow me to finish. It is the last revealed book to the last prophets.
Yes.
Every problematic verse in the Quran is not an eternal verse. No one other than the Imams, which we want to tackle, other than Al-Azhar, which needs to be tackled, other than the Khomeini government, which needs to be brought
So those
down.
verses are not obsolete.
They're not obsolete. No.
They're not obsolete. So beating wife is not obsolete.
No, they are limited to a time and place, and that's how they need to be
So,
seen.
if they are limited to a time and place, that verse in the Quran, you can just simply say that verse is not applicable today.
Yes.
Right? So if it's not applicable today, that verse is obsolete.
The verse that is not...
Applicable today is obsolete. Can we agree there?
Let me give you a quick example. the Quran says by time, verily man is in loss. Right? Which basically means all men and women are in loss. Then the verse comes after it, except those who have faith. So, verily man is in loss is not an eternal verse. It doesn't mean everybody's at loss. Because then the verse after it placed a limit, placed a border, a boundary around it. When we say the verses of beating the wife, the killing of apostates, these aren't verses that say go and butcher and kill and massacre people every single day.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Sorry. If the beating of the wife is revealed in this surah, then loving your wife and in fact, they're your trusted companions is there like your garments. It's there. So I have to be a super intelligent man to correlate this verse to this and say, oh, you know what? Sorry, this is with a caveat.
Not
this
really.
is a provision.
Not really. Not really. Do you know why, Habibi? Because the philosophy behind the revelation of two verses differ. And this is where we're going to come to my type of reform. You are telling me that there's a contradiction.
Yes.
And you need super intelligence.
Not only contradiction. I said if I accept your understanding, then
yes.
There is also, like you said, all people, humans are in loss. There is in Quran. But there is a proviso. But hang on, except those who are believers.
No. You are saying in one chapter says this, and the other chapter says that.
I'm coming to that. What I'm saying.
I'm saying in one chapter the context is clarified.
Right. So if you are explaining the one chapter, for example, beating your wife, it is the last resort, that you beat your wife and then that's it, that's over. But before that, you have to call the opposite side, families of my wife, family of my side, sit together, then you warn, then if it still doesn't work, then you admonish her, and then at last you separate your beds, then you, if in fact, beat your wife lightly, like Jack and Dyke said, with a toothpick. Toothbrush.
And not on her face.
And a toothbrush, yes, not on her face. Yes.
Not on her face.
And all those. Why do we have to, first of all, have those verses for whatever context? Just chuck them out. Because in this modern time and era, forget about chastising wife. Even if my wife is sitting right in the corner. Even if I say, you know what, honey? Hell with you. She's going to say, oh yeah, hell with you. So I will just say this verse is not applicable because I'm not in a position to admonish my wife or discipline my wife when, in fact, the question of beating my wife doesn't even arise. So having that in a book, you have to throw it out because hundreds and millions of people hundreds of millions of Muslims, even if your understanding is that, are getting misled. If you say, I won't say misled, they're getting rightly guided when they beat their wives. They're misled. No, they're misled.
Not.
Okay.
They are and they're not.
Yeah.
I think I've discussed this with both of you possibly, but from my view, the only way that you could have a reform is a massive blanket statement in the following way. You have to find a new revelation that abrogates all of the violent passages.
Ahmadiyas got persecuted for that.
Right. So there is no other way to start doing each little letter and try to reinterpret it. What's your approach to reform?
And I believe many of the viewers would agree with this. We should have selected one topic and discussed
We're
that
having
topic.
a dialogue, brother. It's not
even with dialogue, because now you have raised many questions I need to answer.
Go on.
Let's not get caught in the specific
Allow me to
doctrinal
answer what
details.
he just said.
Oh, go on.
At least.
I will answer back if I can.
Yes. You said that the verse of beating the wife is a matter that Muslims need to apply in order to be rightly guided. That's not true. Do you know the philosophy behind the revelation of that verse? Why that verse was even revealed?
Can't remember.
We're getting caught in the weeds.
Can't remember.
Then I can't answer him.
Go on.
For example,
I can't
in Islam, is there institutionalized misogyny, yes or no?
Yes, there is.
There is.
But not that verse. You should have referred to other verses.
Okay. You
the verse of
enlighten me.
inheritance.
The bottom line is, if I live my life according to the dictums of Islam, it doesn't lead me to create equality between the two sexes, surely, right? So you as a liberal modern man, notwithstanding the fact that you're an imam, how would you reconcile that? I don't care about the surah this, surah that. Nobody cares. 1 out of 100 people watching this care about those details. Big picture. There are many ugly elements to Islam, which you will criticize yourself, and yet you are a reformer imam. How do you reconcile that?
all of the ugly things that you are speaking about were brought up by the brother, which I need to answer.
Okay.
You ask me and I will answer. Don't ask me about
Okay.
how people are guided, if you can question God, because I'm going to have to answer you. And in order to give you a right answer, I'm going to have to refer back to weed stuff. So,
So in each case, so
enlighten me, brother.
me answer,
Brother,
brother.
enlighten me. Enlighten me on the circumstances of that surah.
the general
of that verse.
feeling I get is that your approach is there is a way to interpret that verse
allow me to
so that
finish.
it doesn't seem so ugly.
Yes, I want to know the context of that surah.
The beating
of
of the
the
wife.
beating of wife.
Okay.
And I want to see what you rely on.
okay.
Go on.
Firstly, the Arabs in Mecca used to bury their women alive.
We know that.
So we agree.
Yeah.
Islam came.
Pre-Islam.
Not all. No, not all.
No.
Even
I
during
didn't
the time
say
of-
all.
no.
I said Arabs used to bury
Even
their
in
wives.
India, they terminate fetuses who are.
Do we agree that Arabs used to beat their women
Yes,
alive?
yes.
Okay. In order for a religion to deal with this social problem, the one thing it needs to focus on is what? Keeping the woman alive first. We're not speaking to Oxford graduates in Arabia. We're speaking to the most ignorant people on earth. And I'm an Arab. These are my ancestors. I know. These people were the worst people to ever walk on earth. The Quran itself shows us.
No.
Allow me to finish.
Okay, all right. Go on, brother.
The Quran itself describes these people as very low IQ.
The pre-Islamic Arabs.
The Arabs before and after Islam was established. So we're speaking before Muhammad went to Medina. The Quran says, O Muhammad, tell the believers who are Muslims to enter the house from the door. What does that tell you? If you need God to tell you that when you're going inside your house, go through the door, does that not tell you that these people have a very low IQ? What were you doing? And receiving a message from God isn't something simple. The Quran says Muhammad used to shiver and shake and his blood pressure would go up whenever Gabriel would come down and give him a message. We're not speaking with highly intelligent people. Yes, there were intelligent people. We had astronomers, we had mathematicians and so on. But the people who buried their daughters alive thought that that would be a solution in order for them not to be humiliated when a war would happen. Islam came and they wanted to stop the killing of young girls. The solution for that would be, okay, come you Arab, come chief of an army. What's your problem? Why are you burying them alive? They said, well, not for many reasons. One of the reasons, one poet wrote a poem about the woman being annoying. Up until a few hundred years ago, women were seen as tables and chairs in Europe. They're slaves, they're annoying. Islam says, let them live. This isn't for every Muslim. This statement was stated for that very situation. Let them live.
And let them have havocs on their heads.
Let me finish. Let them live. If they were to annoy you, beat them. We're not speaking to Muslims of today.
So you're basically contextualizing it historically. That's the argument.
Today, we don't have women being buried.
So how come
today, because people are going to cut this, we don't have people being buried today. So there's no reason to beat your wife or to find. You know why? Let me tell you something. Allow me. The solution for the Meccans at that time in itself was a problem.
How come so
Brother,
many
why are you
Muslims
saying,
today misinterpret it not in the way that you're thinking?
Because they're following different
No.
interpretations.
It's not only that. I will just say my question coming back to the same issue. You are always contextualizing this then, that time, and all whatever. But I'm just saying.
Because there is then and that time.
Well, I'm saying. So all you need to do is say these verses are obsolete. We don't need them.
Scrap them out.
Scrap them out.
Do
No,
it.
Okay, fine.
Help us.
All good. Then if I want to start doing that, I will end up with one-page Quran.
Right.
Okay. Now again, so coming to the other
not
issue.
gonna happen.
Well, it's going to happen.
It's not realistic.
But again, you said they wanted to save
These
save
are
women.
wishes that you have.
Wait, Islam wants to save women. Another thing you said that
I didn't say Islam wants to save women.
You said you were trying to save women because they're burying them.
No, I said that very situation in Mecca.
Right.
They were burying them alive.
Uh-huh.
Islam, even though the solution to it is a problem, but it's less of a problem.
Okay, I would rather say how it happened, how Islam saved women. Which Islam did save women. Muslims did save women.
No, they did
yeah,
not.
They did. They did.
No, they did
In
not.
the wars, they kept the women alive
No,
and
they
made
did
them
not.
sex slaves.
No, they did
Well,
not.
they did not make them sex slaves.
They did, but the
well.
women went to be saved in wars.
The women were turned into sex slaves. Men were not turned into sex slaves.
Yes, they were.
Well, some were taken off the penis and all that. We know that history, but that's very minor history.
We agree on the treatment of women.
Yes, but when you have your right hand possesses, that says enough that women were being slaved. And they were having sex slaves. They were having slaves. If you mind the word
I
sex
agree.
slave.
I agree.
Well, I'm just saying. So Islam, in fact, did not uplift women. They even turned Islam's women into chairs and tables, like you said. Until recently, in Europe, women were like tables and tools, right? You just said that.
Islam wasn't in Europe at that time, but anyway.
But you just said, in Europe, Christians and non-believers, if you want to say average people, turn women into chairs and tables.
I didn't say they
tools.
turned them into tables and
Treating
chairs.
them.
I said they treated them
Treated
like
them.
tables and
So
chairs.
Can I interject?
Sorry, 1 second.
Go ahead.
So if that's the case, women were distributed, non-believing women after the war were distributed by Muslims amongst themselves like war booties. So if there is a surah even for war booties, so how can you even accept that Muslims or even Islam saved women? They did not. Their main purpose was just to procreate and just to spread it to ethnic cleansing. Now, sorry, brother, 1 second.
Isn't war politics?
Sorry?
Isn't war politics?
It's a dirty thing.
Isn't
It's a
religion
dirty thing.
theology?
Yes.
Who carried out the wars?
Muslims.
Okay.
And according to the instructions of the Quran.
Okay.
And also, sorry,
No, no, no,
coming
no,
back.
no, no,
Well,
no,
yes,
no,
yes,
no.
yes, yes. Coming
Wars
back.
aren't conducted
Brother,
on the instructions of the
one
Quran.
second. I have to
Because then you
address.
can't. No, if you're saying that wars were conducted on the instructions of the Quran,
Yes.
then how would you answer me when the Quran was?
The one Surah 48,
Let
when
me
the
finish.
Hudaybiyah
Let
treaty.
me finish.
Go on.
How would you answer me when there was only 10 verses in the Quran and there were wars going on?
Oh, excellent question. Now the question is, when did Muhammad? In fact, you said Muhammad during the when he was treated.
Don't answer me with a question.
No, I'm
Give
not
me an
asking a
answer.
question. I will give an answer.
When the Quran only had 10 verses and there were wars happening, how did they get their teachings from the Quran
I will come to that.
to conduct these wars?
Don't worry, brother. I will come to that. So when the Muslims, in fact, were in Mecca, you said that Abrahamic religion and all the religions are the same because they were. Brother,
That's not what I said.
I'll come to that. You can correct me if I'm wrong. That's not a problem. So when Muhammad was uttering those verses, the Jewish people and the Christians, so we already heard that because it's in our book. But those were matching their words because then Waraka bin Nawfal was still alive.
The Christian.
Yes, the Christian was still alive, who was in the household of Muhammad.
Right.
And Khadija. So of course there were matches, there were things like that, and also later on Muhammad came out with the mirror, the mirror
So are you
story.
referring that he was influenced by Christian
Of course
priests?
he was.
Okay.
Of course he
So
was.
now you're throwing at me Christianity and
No,
Islam.
I'm coming. Then, but he changed. So when he
Who changed?
Muhammad changed.
Changed
Muhammad,
what?
His strategy changed.
That's not what people who believe in that say.
Well, I will come to that when and how. Until he migrated to Medina, when he was in Mecca, his people did not persecute him in the sense of getting him killed.
Okay, so
Can I just summarize this for the viewers because they may not know this? When Muhammad was in Mecca, his message was much more peaceful, but he wasn't able. He was a lot more than in Medina, right? And so he didn't get many adherents. How many? Maybe 150 or something.
Islam wasn't even a religion in Mecca.
But then when he went to Medina,
It was a faith.
It really.
It wasn't even
It
a
was
faith.
belief.
It wasn't even a belief.
What was it?
We're not making much progress.
You have 20, 30 people sitting in a house having an idea. It's like a club.
Muhammad was having an idea.
Yeah,
Through revelation.
No, look. Don't take my words too literally. If we're sitting in Montreal and there are 30 people that have an idea, climate change or whatever, do you consider that a faith? You consider that a religion? No. The start of the religion began in Mecca. Its origins, yes, in
Islam
in
is hardly a
Mecca. It began
religion. It's
in
a
Medina.
way of life. That's what it came, right?
Call it whatever you want to call it. It is a
It's not
reality
even a
that
religion.
exists within the lives of many people. And yes,
Yes. So coming to that issue of how Muhammad, in fact, started attacking people. In fact, it started soon after Muhammad coming because Muhammad's intentions were questioned by many Jewish leaders soon after coming to Medina.
do you agree that the Muhammad you're mentioning now is the same Muhammad the Ismailis and the Aga Khanis and the Sunnis and the Shia and all their sects believe in? He's the same one person?
Same one person, but they view it differently.
Okay, so he's
They
not
all
the
view
same
it
person.
differently. No, in that sense, no. Of course not. I will say they don't see,
Okay,
the,
so
see the
when,
same
when
person
you're saying
differently.
Muhammad,
Yes.
tell me which Muhammad and based on what book, so
Okay.
I know how to answer you.
Well,
Otherwise,
that's coming back to the same issue. What is your definition of God? Because your definition of God...
No, it's not the same
Oh, it's
issue.
same.
Not
Because
the same
it's
issue.
same.
Not
Because
the same
it
issue.
is.
It's not
It
the same
is.
issue.
It is. Because
Theologically,
Muhammad,
it's not the same
it is,
issue.
Because
It's
you
not.
cannot...
You know
can,
it's not.
I know it is. Because,
it's not.
I know it is. Because the definition... Anyway.
I'm completely
It is.
extra furniture here.
No. It's not. God.
It is.
No,
It is.
First
it's
time
not.
ever that I'm completely
You
useless.
can't say it's the same thing.
Surah-
Logically, it's not allowed.
It
Muhammad
is.
is a human being.
Muhammad has more control. Muhammad has more control over his people than even a master has over his slave. According to
it's
Quran.
not true.
Surah
Can I-
33,
That's
Surah
not
33
true.
verse 6.
Leave the Quran out of
Oh,
it.
you want to leave the Quran?
Leave the Quran out of it.
I'm lost now.
Brother, reality says
We are talking
otherwise.
everything now. We are going to throw out
Yes,
Quran.
Muhammad wanted paper and pen. They wouldn't give him paper and pen. Muhammad told them to stand, take your positions in the Battle of Uhud. Did they listen to him? No, they used to disobey him. They called him crazy. Who said Muhammad had control over the Muslims? Muhammad couldn't even control his own people.
Well, according to the Quran, Muhammad has more control, authority.
Leave the Quran. You don't even believe in it. Speak to me in reality.
Well, you are.
But what do you mean?
What
So we
if you
leave-
leave the Quran now?
we leave
If
the
you left
hadith, we
you
leave
left
the
Sirah,
seerah,
you left
we
the
leave the
Quran.
Quran.
What are we going to debate on now?
Look, you are telling
Okay, let's talk
me.
about
Look, brother.
Jimmy
Soccer,
Sago.
soccer,
Soccer.
World Cup.
Let's soccer.
You're telling me Muhammad had control over his people.
Brother, the weather is beautiful today in Montreal.
Muhammad had no control over his people whatsoever. You cannot prove that to me. Yes, the time where they aligned with him was because of interests. The Battle of Tabuk, 30,000 soldiers. Were they all Muslim? No, they were Arab chiefs who had political interests.
I will
with him.
give an example.
When you say something, back it up so I
I'm,
can answer
I'm
you.
backing up everything I'm saying. Hudaybiyah Treaty, right? When Muhammad wanted to sign the Hudaybiyah Treaty, many of the Muslims resented. They don't want to sign the Hudaybiyah Treaty. But eventually, Muhammad, after telling them 3 times, they accepted Hudaybiyah
One
Treaty.
incident because he promised them
Well,
incentives.
well.
That's not
I'm just
control.
giving an example when
That's
they
not
listen to
control.
him.
That's not control.
That's not control. That's
There's
not listening. They
incentives.
listen to them.
Incentives.
And then
Do
during
you
the
guys
prayer, he
think- can I just interrupt you? Do you guys think that discussing such details advances
They're
the
useless.
conversation?
They're
Okay,
useless.
okay, bring down to the issue. Now, I leave it up to you now. Go on.
I feel like, and I'm sorry to say that this has been a missed opportunity because what ends up happening is we get caught in weeds that ultimately we can't get out of. What's more interesting, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to save the sinking ship at this point, but what is much more interesting is to look at the areas where you both agree, because there are
Okay,
many,
let's agree.
and then there are many areas or a few areas where you both disagree, and understanding the psychological mechanisms where those disagreements come from. So I go back to my original question, which is, he rejects Islam completely, you reject many parts of Islam, and you use a process
Can we work
to
together?
reject those. How do you go about achieving that? I don't give a
Let
damn
me
about
answer
Surah
you.
4.7. Who cares?
Okay, please don't come up with these.
To me, and forgive me, Imam, you are quoting
I
stuff.
do because I have to be convinced.
No.
You are quoting surahs that
I'm not going to get into these. I'm just going to answer you right
All
now.
right, go on.
Don't interrupt
it
me.
only
please.
took about an
go on.
hour. Okay, let's go.
The religion itself, when it was revealed in order to guide people. All religions are like that. Religions emerge to guide people, not to rule over them. I see Islam as a religion that has become too dominant on the lives of human beings, and we need to start differentiating between the religion in itself as a message and the control of the religion upon people through religious clergymen. I want to separate, I want to create a complete divide, in which we are creating a complete divide between the clerical systems, the hierarchies, and the believers. Because the believers are like sheep, and I will say this and they can get upset. Muslims, when it comes to their religion, they are like sheep. And they know they are like sheep. How is it that we are sitting in Canada, right? A mufti in Mecca says jihad, the guy in Montreal blows himself up. What's this connection? Where does this come from? This one concept of the one nation needs to be destroyed. There is no such thing as a mufti in Mecca giving a fatwa against people in America, and then the Muslim in America blows himself up.
Okay, so can I interrupt you?
So
there?
the clerical system is one I tackle. Then, in order to weaken the clerical system, we need to expose the filth within their books.
But in your view, their books is the hadith. And this is
Hadith,
not,
publications, interpretations of Quran, whatever it needs, all means necessary.
but not the Quran.
interpretations of the Quran. Brother,
the
you
Quran.
cannot change the Quran. You cannot change it. Give me one more minute.
Sure.
You're a Jewish man.
Yeah.
You people never had a government to protect you. Did you have a government?
Except now.
70 years ago.
Yeah.
For thousands and thousands of years, you were persecuted. You were massacred, killed. People chased you. Governments chased you. And you don't want people to convert to your religion either. You don't have stalls and tables, and you're not giving out free books in Judaism, calling people. In fact, it's very hard for someone to become Jewish.
Exactly right.
You still exist, and many Jews still exist. You can't eradicate a religion. You can't wipe it out. Try, wipe it, help me.
So what you're basically saying...
Well, I would say that
can I
the
just summarize
worshipping of Aphrodite is not there anymore. It's surviving in the world for 6,000 years.
So what you're saying basically is you're taking a pragmatic approach, which is, look, you're not going to get rid of
Impossible,
Islam.
yes.
People are still going to hunger to belong to that faith.
Yes.
Let me see if I can find a way to make it more palatable in a
Yes.
modern world.
And the only way to do that, removing the human authority.
But then my question is, from my understanding
me
of
the same
Islam,
question, yeah?
there is no clear doctrinal path to get to the Islam that you seem to preach, right? I mean, I follow many of the people that write on your blogs and on your posts, and they all love what you preach. I love what you preach. But to me, it sounds like it's a form of unicorn Islam. It's an Islam that we would all wish to have, but doctrinally speaking, I don't see the support in your position. So tell us how us and the billions of other people have all misunderstood Islam.
No, I never said that. I never said they
Or
have misunderstood.
miscontextualized or whatever.
Allow me to...
Sure.
I think what you're trying to say is clarify how your type of Islam will be applied to the people.
And when.
And when, yeah. Now, first question was what, and I explained to you what my vision was. Now you're saying how.
How.
And this is what the answer is.
And then maybe you could answer whether
Yes.
his how is correct.
Yeah. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah, get it somewhere.
It only took 2 hours.
Yeah, we're getting
You're
somewhere.
offering us coffee after this, no?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. On me. The Jew offering the Muslim and the ex-Muslim.
Yeah.
I'm going to answer you. The matter of how, on a personal level, as an individual, is not fair. I've only been in the scene for when? I rebelled in 2014, 2015. I've been trying to gain an audience for 3-4 years. I need more time. Anyone would need more time. You want me to write a book? I'm in the process of writing my story. And all of my problems, an absolute expose of the corruption. My second book will be a solution. What you're telling me now, that Tawhidi, you want to reform Islam, I'm telling you Tawhidi is going to die and Islam will not be reformed. Every reformer you have today, we will leave this planet and Islam will never be reformed. I don't believe in a reformation of a global religion. I believe in the reformation of certain individuals, reformation of communities that rise up against the clerical systems. These are discussions that need to be had. I need more time. The world can't expect from me, okay, Tawhidi, you came on the news in 2016, it's 2018, give us your complete manifesto and manual as to how you're going to reform. It doesn't work like that. First, I need to build relations with diplomats, with governments, which is what I'm doing right now. Secondly, I need to gain an audience. Third plan, I shouldn't be saying this, but you're cornering me too. Third plan is to gather a massive conference and make sure you know how many people you have. Then we will sign a global declaration, separate ourselves from these jihadis and these extremists and radicals. Then we will present a different interpretation of the Holy Quran, and so on and so forth.
But haven't endless people tried to reform Islam in the past?
That's the problem. I'm not trying to reform Islam.
So you think Islam will
Well,
not be touched,
never.
but you'll change the human
Reformed,
manifestation of
yes.
how it is practiced.
Reformed
What are your
individuals.
thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
And I am an example of a reformed individual as a Muslim.
Right.
And that is
First of all,
successful.
thank you, brother, for having me, giving me the opportunity of talking to you here. First of all, it is probably extremely rare to find an imam like you to talk to openly, candidly. So that is by itself proof enough that how far off we are from reformation, how far off we are. My brother here believes that Islam will never be reformed, and I rather believe that too. Islam will never be able to be reformed. Islam cannot be reformed. And even if it's reformed, you can reform some individuals, their understanding and perspectives can be viewed, and their views can be different, their visions can be different. It doesn't matter how I put forward my arguments, my historical analytical understanding, my references, but they will say, no, hang on, I see it differently. Okay. But with that pace of time, the world will not even exist by then, probably.
No.
So, brother, let me finish. I didn't interrupt what you said. So I believe that rather the best way and the quickest way to expect reformation of Islam or ought to have an impact so that you can say it is not dictating the way that we are seeing dictating us or interfering us, if you want to say that term, in our day-to-day peaceful life is to subdue Islam. How do you subdue Islam? You subdue Islam by telling the unequivocal, explicit truth about it without being hypocrite about it, without engaging mental gymnastics about it. And then what will happen? Vast number of Muslims will become less Islamic. That's what I want. And if it comes to a situation where now you will see many Christians, they will say, you know what? Brother?
Less Islamic means they leave the faith.
Less religious.
Less religious. For
But
example,
they stay in the faith.
Yeah. For example, there are Christians now who will say, you know what? There are sins in the Bible, but I have a faith. The faith is Jesus. I love Jesus, and that's it. He will consider himself.
So watered down Islam.
Yes, watered down Islam. But the question will be, Christianity had to go through a lot of, through history. They the wars after wars, even Catholics warring, Protestants. I live in Belfast, where the city is divided into, with walls. Protestants on the other side, Catholics on this side. I have to go around my neighborhood to come to the other side. So I know all that. So if there is a chance in any way, like my brother here is saying, that there will come a situation where Islam will come to a situation where I say, you know what? I believe in Allah. And that's I believe in Muhammad. I have a faith. I cannot go into nitty-bitty details. And I'm like, Quran, yeah, there are problems there. If that's the case, I would say, okay, I'm okay with that. I will say. But I will still end up saying that, sorry, there's absurdity, and I don't appreciate you following absurd things, but it's your way. Okay, go ahead. If you believe there is somebody knitting weeds on the moon, up to you. But I will just simply say I'm not in support of cherishing, nourishing fairy tales.
Last thoughts?
My thoughts is that the brother wants us to expose the wrong within Islam. I'm doing that on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, in fact, on social media and when I'm on television. But you also need to understand that you are facing a greater force that's painting a lovely picture of the entire system that you are up against. And how many reformers are there? We need to be very realistic. How many are there?
Handful.
10?
Yes.
10? Yeah. And how old are we? How much longer do we want to live? We are up against the force. Here in this city and in the neighboring city and other cities, you have people who are working day and night and spending the millions and billions of dollars in order to spread the fundamental version of Islam, right? You, one individual, want to tell them, don't spread your fairy tales. That's not going to happen, brother. The only way for change is from the very inside. It'll take time. But if we pave the way for it, with the more freedom that the world is experiencing, with the corruption in the Middle East that's vanishing, there is hope. Mohammed bin Salman is bringing reform on a very low level, political, but it's still a start. Raif Badawi, for example, has hope in a matter of reformation. Ayan Hirsi Ali, she left the religion, but she still believes there needs to be a reformation. Why? Because it's a realistic approach to solving the problem, a reformation. We are up against a force that has billions and billions and billions of dollars, and has millions and millions and millions of advocates in hundreds of languages. As individuals, we can't make a wall, hold hands as reformers and say, we're going to stop it. It's not going to work like that. We need to reform from within. And reforming from within...
Sure. And I wish the conversation would have stayed at that level.
Yeah.
Okay. But my understanding is, brother, listen, the issue, the demand, or the necessity to reform it, as you say, has come after people like me, or people like us who started living Islam and became very critical about it. Many of my friends died paying tribute to their lives in Bangladesh just for writing blogs, writing a sentence. They got killed by Islamists. And Christianity also went through a lot of nonsense and barbarism, where scientists like Bruno was burned to death. But it has drifted from there, and it has come to a situation where we see, if you say Christianity has reformed, in a way it has, because there are, as I said, there are people who say, I just have a faith. Now, Islam, can it be reformed? Is it necessary to be reformed? As my brother said, the understanding needs to be reformed, probably, if I'm not wrong. So how do you do that unless and until people like me are also given the chance and the opportunity to criticize it unequivocal terms?
And I think you'd agree with that.
So this is one part of the reformation process. The other part of the reformation process is what brother is saying, and I will always say, sorry, there's no need for it. And I will always say, this is what is Islam. But he will always say, well, this is a way. I will say there is a central message. Say, in Tripitaka, Gautam Buddha said, Sarbe Satta Sukita Hantu. Let there be peace and everything. There is a central message in the Bible, in the teachings of Jesus. Central message: love the enemies. Central messages, but he loves everybody, even those who reject God. But what about Islam? We need to work on central message. If there's a central message, if Allah is all merciful, all forgiving to everybody, then we'll come to that understanding. We'll see whether we can work with it. But to come to that, we also need to respect and find a way, first of all, to save people like me. And that has to be done, first of all, if you want to question the mindset, you have to also speak out against our freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. And that is one part of the story. Second part of the story will come on after that.
Can I summarize? Even though we got stuck in a lot of weeds, I think what we can take away from all this is that you have an Imam here who loves his faith, who practices his faith, yet criticizes it. You have an ex-Islamic preacher who now left the religion. You have an atheist Jew. All three of us can sit together at a table, have a conversation, sometimes get lost in a bit of too many doctrinal details, but that's what freedom of speech allows you to do, and that is to have three brothers in humanity, I don't give a damn about your faith, sitting down, talking to one another, and that's where the future lies. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
A real pleasure.
Right.
Cheers.
Right.